In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to build low back strength endurance without damaging the spine, because there are ways you can build endurance, but you are going to be affecting the spine, and there are also ways to do it without, and that's what we're going to look at. So what you're going to learn, first of all, anatomy of the spine and the surrounding muscles, how the spine becomes injured, how the anatomy works, and exercises that build low back strength endurance. If you want to build low back strength endurance, please do click the link below, go through to my How to Build Low Back Strength Endurance 12-week online program. Firstly, quick tour of the anatomy. We've got vertebra, discs, and facet joints. We're going to be talking about these as we go, so just to make sure we know what we're talking about. So the vertebra are obviously the bony bits in there, then you've got the discs that sit in between them, and then we've got the joints of the facet joints which sit in between each of the vertebra, but in between the processes that come off the back of the spine. So they're basically the different parts of the spine that we're going to be mentioning throughout this tutorial. What we'll now look at are the muscles. And there are three main muscles that we're going to look at. We've got iliocostalis, longissimus, and QL, and they're all on this diagram. So you've got iliocostalis, you've got longissimus, and you've then got QL out here. Now there are more. I have done other videos on more of the lower back muscles, which you can look for. But essentially, we're going to be focusing on these three. Now, the main features of these are the fact that longissimus and iliocostalis, they anchor onto the ribs. Now this is very important because a lot of people think they need to be doing back extensions, which is going to be contracting muscles in this area. But what's more effective for spine stability and maintaining good health of the spine is to access longissimus and iliocostalis, because they anchor onto the rib cage, and they are essentially, so if you can imagine my arm is on the rib cage and then my hand is the muscles, they're essentially grabbing onto the rib cage, anchoring down against it, and then holding the lower back up, or the lower spine up. So that's kind of what they're doing. They anchor against the ribs and hold up the spine. You've then got QL, which is a very important muscle because it connects the pelvis, the spine, and the rib cage. And they think, again, the exercise to do is a side bend, and it's not, for very simple reasons, which we'll come on to later. So what's the anatomy doing? What are these muscles and the vertebra and the discs and the facet joints doing? Well, number one, it's looking to hold up your spine. Now, as I've mentioned, it uses anchor points on the rib cage. So if I just put the anchor point here, just again for explanation purposes, and then it then joins all the way down onto each of the vertebra. Now again, this isn't an exact example, but it will hopefully get the point across. So what happens is, this is the anchor down here. So what happens is when these muscles contract, it's holding the spine in place. So what then happens is you're better able to maintain the posture of the spine and maintain the health and eventually the fitness of the spine over time because of these anchor points. Now again, the rib cage isn't the only one, because the QL goes between the pelvis, up the 5 vertebrae, and again across the ribs. So it's using a slightly different anchor point. You've got other muscles which use other anchor points. So there are more, but with regards to the muscles that we're talking about, obviously I've mentioned the rib cage, so I'll use that as the example. The other two is to neutralize anterior shear and to maintain spine stability over time. Now, the previous two, about holding up the spine and the neutralizing anterior shear, that effectively is maintaining spine stability over time. So, with regards to anterior shear, what is it? Well, it's where a vertebra wants to fall off the one below it. So, we've got L5 here. So, L4 would want to fall off the top of L5. So, if it's upright, it wants to fall off the top there. Now, you can see that I'm now over in a sort of a deadlift type position. And what I've tried to do here is I've brought this spine to about 45 degrees. So again, if we take this anchor point up here and we join all these vertebrae to that anchor point, when these muscles contract, it holds these vertebrae in position. because when the vertebra wants to fall off, that is known as an anterior shear force. But when these muscles contract, it basically neutralizes it and holds the vertebra up into position. So it's all about maintaining that position. Now, this is important because this can only be done in the neutral position. When it's rounded, these muscles don't work as effectively, and it doesn't neutralize the anterior shear as effectively. So we have to make sure that it's in the neutral posture when we come over into these positions. And obviously, as I mentioned at the start, this is maintaining overall spine stability over time, which is what strength endurance is. Strength is the ability to hold the position. Endurance is the ability to hold it over time and resist fatigue, which is why we need to build it, which is why the 12-week program is set up in the way it's set up. And also the exercises have been chosen in the way that they've been chosen, because they want to be able to do these three things, which is hold your spine, neutralize the anterior shear, and maintain overall spine stability over time. So how does the spine become injured? Well, there could be different ones. I'm just going to mention flexion, extension, lateral flexion. So we've got extension here by doing some sort of Superman back extension type exercise where you lift yourself off the floor. We've got spine flexion, which again could be it could be a deadlift, it could be sitting as I'm doing here. And also we've got a lateral flexion here, which is essentially bending the spine to the side. Now, if we take extension first, so the back extension example. So as I mentioned, you have these facet joints that sit sort of on the back of the vertebra. So you've got the vertebra there, and then you've got the facet joints that sort of come up, and then they join together. And that the joint is between these two vertebrae. Now, when you go into extension, they can get sort of squashed together. That can then create inflammation, and that can then create pain. So that goes towards the injury of the spine coming from extension. Flexion will obviously get the discs, and same with lateral flexion. That will get the discs, and in some respects, it will get the facet joints as well. So we basically don't want to irritate these parts of the anatomy. We want to try and maintain good health within them, which is why we need to maintain proper postures of the spine. So what we're going to look at next are the exercises that can help us do that, but also get the activation out of the muscles. So what are these exercises that are able to maintain good health and fitness of the spine and also get the muscles nice and active? So we've got bird dog. Now, as I should mention, and I always do, there are more than this, but I've just chosen three simple ones. So we've got bird dog, which is here. Then you've got carries, as you can see in here. And then you've got some sort of good morning, RDL, where we're flexing forward. Now, all of these basically align with everything that I've talked about. We are able to maintain proper curve of the lumbar spine, So we're able to do that, which again can activate the muscles. If we are lifting the chest here. So we're lifting the chest. That's going to be activating longissimus and iliocostalis. By lifting the arm here and keeping the chest up, again, longissimus, iliocostalis. And when we're talking about any kind of carries, you get QL in there. And you also get, again, if you're standing up tall, you get longissimus, iliocostalis and longissimus coming down into this position as well. Again, there are going to be more muscles activated from these exercises. But again, if we're just talking simply about good exercises to start doing, we want to be looking at bird dog type exercises, good morning, RDL type exercises, because we're also getting the hips involved. And we're talking about the carries, because then we're starting to get the lateral seam muscles, QL, obliques, glute medius. These are other muscles that are going to be activated. So these are the three exercises to start doing, and lateral bends, any type of back extension or Superman, they're the ones to start avoiding. So to quickly summarize everything that we talked about: anatomy of the spine and surrounding muscles. You've got vertebra, discs, facet joints. They are what we're basically trying to maintain the health and the fitness within. We've then got the muscles. We've got iliocostalis, longissimus, and QL, or they're the ones that we've really talked about. How this works: number one, hold the spine up. Number two, neutralize anterior shear. And then number three, which is the overall effect, which is maintaining good spine stability over time. How does the spine become injured? With spine flexion, spine extension under load mainly, and spine lateral flexion. And then the exercises that build low back strength endurance: bird dog, good morning, RDL, carries. So these are the exercises that we want to start doing, and as I mentioned, trying to avoid the back extensions, the lateral bends and supermans and things like that. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the content, hit the like button. If you've learned something new, hit the thanks button. If you want to watch more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. And if you've got a comment or a question, please do leave it below, and I'll do my best to answer it as quickly as possible.